prejudice any later legal proceedings. Urgent question, Martin Doherty-Hughes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Let's get straight to the point, shall we? Last month, as you have rightly intimated, Madam Deputy Speaker, lawyers representing...
Just the question.
Just a question.
This House is considered Jagtar Singh Johal's arbitrary detention.
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I am grateful to the honourable member for West End Berkshire for raising this urgent question, and I pay tribute to his tenacious support for his constituent. Mr Jagtar Singh Johal, since his arrest in India in 2017. I appreciate what a difficult time this must be for Mr Johal's family and friends. Again, I pay tribute to his Member of Parliament for all that he is doing for his constituent in these difficult, challenging circumstances. Consular assistance to British nationals overseas is the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office's primary public service and a priority for the Foreign Secretary. Since Mr Johal's arrest over 4 years ago, ministers and officials have consistently raised our concerns about his welfare and treatment directly with the Government of India. With Mr Johal's consent, this has included raising allegations of torture, mistreatment and his right to a fair trial. Prime Minister Johnson raised Mr Johal's case with Prime Minister Modi in April. Then Foreign Secretary raised Mr Johal's case with the then Indian Minister for External Affairs, Dr Jayashankar, and most recently, in Delhi on the 31st of March, Lord Ahmed of Wimbledon, the Minister of State covering South Asia and Commonwealth, is also in regular contact with his counterparts across the Indian government. Since 2017, ministers and officials have raised Mr Johal's detention on almost 100 occasions and will continue to do so. Madam Deputy Speaker, in May, the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention published its opinion that Mr Johal is arbitrarily detained. We take this seriously, and we are committed to doing what we can to assist Mr Johal. On the 9th of June, the then Foreign Secretary met the Honourable Member for West Dunbartonshire and Mr Johal's brother Gurpreet to discuss this matter. Madam Deputy Speaker, in February this year, lawyers acting for Mr Johal issued a civil litigation claim against Her Majesty's Government in the High Court. Last month, they detailed their allegations. We must let the legal process take its course, and I will therefore not comment on this matter in line with the long-standing established practice, as I'm sure all members will appreciate, and as, Madam Deputy Speaker, you have outlined before the start of this urgent question. I can assure the Honourable Member for West Dunbartonshire and the House that we will continue to do all we can to support Mr Johal and his family.
Martin Doherty-Hughes.
Well, round two, Madam Deputy Speaker. Let's get back to it. The Minister, I'm grateful for his words, but let's remember my constituent has now had his 188th pre-trial hearing suspended today because the courts in India couldn't make their mind up, and maybe we should extend our consideration to him, not just everyone else that's just been mentioned so far. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, you mentioned the criminal proceedings being brought. I think it should not be out with order to say that lawyers representing my constituent submitted a motion at the Royal Courts of Justice seeking redress after compelling evidence emerged linking the United Kingdom Government directly to his arrest and torture almost 5 years ago. A case study which is in the public domain has uncovered by human rights group Reprieve, and I and the Johal family are extremely grateful for all their work, from the Investigatory Power Commissioner's Office annual report in March 2020 matches entirely the specific details of Jagtar's case, with a gut punch of admission that he was arrested on the basis of information provided by the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland's intelligence services. This information, which has posed a multitude of hard questions for this government, and especially the new Prime Minister as a former Foreign Secretary, and I'm sure we'll get to hear many of them from members present today, and I am grateful to many members who have supported this case. I am hugely grateful. Like hundreds of thousands of UK citizens of Sikh ethnicity, the Singh Johal family travel to India every year. Yet now they must wonder if it's safe for them to continue to do so. They must also contend with the realisation what the horror which Jagtar went through in November 2017 of being held incommunicado for 10 days, tortured and forced into signing a blank confession. Of the arbitrary detention agreed by the previous Prime Minister he has faced since. Of the trial by public media in the Indian Republic. All of this was caused directly, at least for me, by the intervention of the state, which is meant to protect him. Now, I'm afraid we have a family, an MP and a House of Commons who want answers on who knew what and when. Madam Deputy Speaker, Jagtar, and let me bring it to a conclusion, has a UK passport. It's the only passport, I'm afraid, I have and I think you have. On the inside pages are written the words, Her Britannic Majesty's Principal Secretary of State requests and requires in the name of Her Majesty all those whom it may concern to allow the bearer to pass freely without let or hindrance and to afford the bearer such assistance and protection as may be necessary. Finally, of all the many questions I could ask the Minister, the one I think is important. Do they think that their government has stayed true to these words in the case of Jagtar Singh Johal?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The first point I would say to my honourable friend is with regards to the first priority of the government is the welfare of Mr Johal. That is the first priority of the government, as it would be the first priority of any government with regards to British citizens anywhere around the world. With regards to his specific point, and I come back to the point I raised earlier, and I come back to the point, Madam Deputy Speaker, that you outlined at the very outset, with regards to any civil litigation, with regards to concerns on the intelligence agencies. I cannot and I will not comment in this House in that. What I will do is I will reiterate, because my honourable friend raised that specifically in his question to me. The point again I raise, Mr Johal has an active civil litigation case against Her Majesty's Government on this matter. And this is the issue before the court, and we must let the legal process take its course. And I will not therefore comment on this matter in line with long-established practice, and I'm sure the honourable member appreciates. What I would also say to the honourable member is this. Of course, the Indian government, listening to this parliamentary debate, will have to take into account the views of members of parliament. 140 members of parliament and members of the peers have expressed an interest in this case. Our former Prime Minister raised this case with the Indian Prime Minister. Our former Foreign Secretary raised this matter with her counterpart, the Foreign Secretary. If I may, and of course I'll take questions later on subject to what Madam Deputy Speaker says. What I would say, the point I'm trying to make to bring the House together is that at the highest level possible, this case has been raised with our counterparts and will continue to do all we can to support Mr Johal in this particular case.
David Davis.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I associate myself with every word uttered by the honourable member for West Dunbartonshire? Let's be clear. We can't talk about the case, but the allegation is clear. The allegation is that the British government was complicit in provision of information to the Indian government, knowing that it might be used for torture and in a capital case. The point here, Madam Deputy Speaker, is that this is not the first time this has happened. On numerous occasions this has happened. And what is being said by the government is that what was said by the government a few years ago by Theresa May as Prime Minister was to apologise for the previous case, the most famous previous case in Libya. What she actually said was, "We are profoundly sorry for the ordeal you have suffered and our role in it." That was within a few months of the government's, of Mr Johal's arrest and potentially the government's involvement in it. Now, this isn't the only case. There isn't only one civil case looking at this, Madam Deputy Speaker. There's another one in the name of the Honourable Member for Barnsley Central and myself, demanding that the government reviews, as it was promised, its attitude to torture and its complicity and involvement in it. And one of the things I'm going to ask the Minister is, will he please give an undertaking that we will now have that review covering the Johal case and all the others that went before it, and promising to this House we will never again be complicit in the torture of any British citizen.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. With regards to the first point raised by my right honourable friend, the point you raise is that there are allegations in this case. Absolutely, there are allegations, and there is a procedure and process that those allegations have to go through to be looked at, and they are going through the High Court at this point in time. And on that basis, I will not be drawn into commenting on that, and he will recognise, as well as every other Member of Parliament will recognise, if there is an allegation, it has to go through a process, and therefore the separation of power between the Executive, the Judiciary and the Legislature, that matter now, Madam Deputy Speaker, is at the High Court, and the High Court should make a determination on that specific matter.
Shadow Minister Catherine West.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. The allegation in recent weeks of the potential collusion of the British Intelligence Service in the arbitrary detention of Mr Johal are deeply worrying. It's vitally important that the veracity of these claims be investigated as soon as possible to find the truth, and the House will expect the Minister to be clear on whether the former Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Member for Uxbridge, under whose watch this occurred, we believe, authorised sharing this intelligence with the Indian government when he was the Foreign Secretary. I also urge the Minister to outline whether the government is utilising its contacts at the highest level of the Indian government to press for Mr Johal's release without further delay. 3 further questions. Firstly, will the Foreign Secretary, who was appointed last night, make it at his earliest opportunity available for a meeting with the family? Secondly, since 1995, human rights has been part of a dialogue, every government since 1995, when we come to speak with India about trade. And yet the current agreement, the free trade agreement, does not appear to be having human rights within it. Can he clarify that? And finally, it is a worrying pattern that throughout the Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office there are other cases, for example, Murad Tabaz remaining languishing in an Iranian prison, or we have the case of Alaa Abed Al-Fattah in Egypt for liking a Facebook page. What urgent action is the FCDO taking on these cases? It has to be a first principle that every British national, it's the first duty of the government to look after them. The family have said today, will the new Prime Minister show more guts than her predecessor? And I think everyone in this House would like to see some backbone injected into these negotiations.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And it's a real pleasure to face the Shadow Opposition spokesman, who I look forward to, if in play, to exchanging views with her on these specific points. The first point she raises with regards to what were the actions or the non-actions of the former Prime Minister with regards to this specific case. I think it's absolutely important when such an accusation is made that it is fully, thoroughly investigated and looked at. And that will be done by the High Court because, as I say, Mr Johal has an active civil litigation case against Her Majesty's government on this matter. And this is the issue before the court. And we must let the legal process take its course. And I am not therefore able to comment and will not comment on this matter in line with a long-established practice, as I'm sure the honourable member appreciates, and I'm sure she would agree with me, that we all in this House respect the separation of power between the Executive, the Judiciary and the Legislature. And with regards to the intelligence agencies, the various different checks and balances that we have the Intelligence Select Committee of this House, we have the Intelligence Tribunal, we have the Intelligence Commissioner. No doubt the accusations that have been made need to be fully, thoroughly looked at, as in line with the High Court case that we have. Her second point to me was with regards to human rights and our engagement with India. Let me make this point very clear. With regards, we believe that trade is vital for our economy and that future prosperity. This is in no way compromises the United Kingdom's commitment to upholding human rights at the core of our foreign policy. We will not pursue trade to the exclusion of human rights. We regard both as an important part of a deep, mature, wide-ranging relationship with our international trading partners, and the 2030 roadmap for India-UK future relations, agreed by the former Prime Minister with Prime Minister Modi, had a specific agreement with regards to commitment to resolving long-running or complex consular cases. And the other specific cases that she has raised, I see to my left ministers who cover different thematic regions around the world will no doubt take on board the specific cases that she has made. I'm very happy post this appearance to ensure that those specific cases that she has raised, that she gets an answer with regards to what the government is doing on those matters.
Bob Blackman.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I congratulate the member for West Berkshire for pursuing this case on behalf of his constituent. He's been assiduous in pursuing justice for Jagtar Singh Johal. My understanding, however, I'd like to come back to the plight of Jagtar Singh Johal rather than the case against the government. I understand that he is a member of the KLF, which is a proscribed organisation in India, and indeed at the moment he is facing up to 8 charges of either murder or attempted murder. Now, will my honourable friend ensure that consular assistance is provided to him so that he gets a fair trial, and then we can deal with the issues as a result?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. What I would say to my honourable friend is that the specific question that we have before the House today is looking at with regards to the welfare and the treatment of a British national in India, where there is specific concerns with regards to his welfare and treatment. The United Kingdom government has made it very clear with regards to the number of engagements and representations that we've had, with nearly 100 between officials and ministers, and from Prime Minister to Prime Minister, to Foreign Secretary to Foreign Secretary, how important we take these concerns. The point he raises with regards to the allegations, what I would say is that allegations, what I would, if I may finish, what I would say, the accusations and allegations that have been made with regards to the situation of a British national abroad need to be looked at fully, fairly, in line with India's commitments to human rights, India's commitment to its domestic law, and India's commitment to international law, because that is what we would regard for any citizen anywhere around the world.
SNP spokesperson Stuart C. MacDonald.
I'm very grateful to you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I pay tribute to my honourable friend for West Bartonshire for securing this urgent question and for his relentless campaigning on behalf of his constituent, and I 100% echo his comments and agree with what he has said. Now, as I understand it, the outgoing Prime Minister has previously been absolutely clear that this is a case of arbitrary detention. Is that still the Minister's position today? Yeah. It seems absolutely clear that he's been disgracefully treated during that detention. So will the government call for his release? A simple question. I appreciate there are legal proceedings ongoing just now, but can he assure us that in the fullness of time there will be a full statement to this Parliament about exactly what went on and any sort of inquiry that my honourable friend calls for? And can I raise 2 final issues? We know about this today thanks to the diligent work of organisations such as Reprieve, but it brings to our attention the issue of whistleblowers. We know that 99% of the time our security services serve us absolutely fantastically well, but things do go wrong, abuses happen. So is there not now a need for protection of whistleblowers and for public interest offences in relation to disclosures, for example in relation to the National Security Bill that's going through Parliament just now? And in relation to that bill, does the Minister agree that if, hypothetically, if UK agencies are found liable in damages for actions that they undertake which lead to torture abroad, those damages should be paid? And if so, why does that bill, in clause 58, appear to create new and unnecessary ways in order to avoid security services having to meet those damages? How can that be justified in any way, shape or form?
Thank you. If I may answer the first part of his question with regards to the view taken by the former Prime Minister on arbitrary detention and Mr Johal's case. The United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention has issued its opinion about Mr Johal. We take this seriously and have consistently raised our concerns about Mr Johal's case directly with the Government of India. We are committed to doing what we can to assist him. With regards to the second part of his question about arbitrary detention and the issue of release, the focus of these cases is always working the best interest of the individuals concerned. And there is no blanket approach for these cases and are tailored for specific individuals. And I'm sure that the new Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary will want to review this case as a priority. And the specific point he makes with regards to the national security legislation and the bill, that is a matter which is being led on by the Home Office. And again, I do not comment on with regards to matters with the intelligence agencies and this specific case because of a live civil litigation case going on at the High Court.
Before I call the next honourable member, I do want to emphasise that I have advised members and right honourable members to exercise caution in what they say. I cannot force people, just to be clear, cannot force people to stick to that. That is my advice. Can I also say that I want to try to get everybody in, but that means short questions, not a series of questions from now on, but short questions to the Minister so that the Minister is able to respond quickly. And in that way, I can try to get everybody in. Flick Drummond.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And India has very close, the UK has close relationships with India, and our partnership is vitally important to both our nations, but also for global peace and security, not least trade. Can my honourable friend confirm that the UK government will continue to discuss the importance of human rights and the rule of law with India as part of that partnership, especially with any forthcoming trade deals?
Madam Deputy Speaker, you said brevity is a virtue, not a vice, and the answer to that is yes.
Singh Desai.
Thank you very much. Madam Deputy Speaker, according to revelations revealed by Reprieve and investigative journalists, it was apparently a tip-off by British security services that led to the arrest and arbitrary detention of Jagtar Singh Johal in India. And all the meanwhile, Conservative government ministers were informing us ad nauseum that they were doing their very best and they were protecting his rights as a British citizen. What utter hypocrisy. So can the Minister confirm, did the outgoing disgraced Prime Minister, during his tenure as Foreign Secretary, did he sign off on that tip-off, which led to an arbitrary detention and including serious allegations of torture?
And what I would say to the honourable member is this, and I made the point again, the separation of power between the executive, the judiciary, legislative chair and the executive. He's made an accusation. He's made with regards to what a former Prime Minister may or may not have known with regards to this specific case. The matter is before the High Court. I cannot comment on this matter with that regard, and I will not comment on it.
And Johal.
Speaker, can I pay tribute to the honourable member for West Dunbartonshire for the tenacity in which he's pursuing the release of his constituent, and can I also associate myself with the remarks made by the Right Honourable Gentleman for Holton Price and Howden. This is a deeply concerning case, and as we've heard earlier this year, the UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detentions declared that Jagtar's detention in India is unlawful, and I raised that along with other honourable and right honourable members earlier in this year. The new government needs to move urgently to try and end this nightmare and secure his release. So, as an absolute minimum, can I ask the Minister to try and ensure that the new Prime Minister raises this matter in her first call with her Indian counterpart? And can the Minister give an assurance that he and his colleagues across government will continue to raise their concerns at every available opportunity?
With regards to if I may answer the point, can this matter be raised at every level, and will the Prime Minister raise it? The current Prime Minister, as a former Foreign Secretary, raised this case with her counterpart. She is fully aware of this case. The case was previously raised by Prime Minister Johnson to Prime Minister Modi at the highest level. Lord Ahmed in the other place has raised it consistently. So the point he makes is, can this matter be conveyed? I cannot say to the Prime Minister what must be raised in those meetings. That's a matter for the Prime Minister. But the Prime Minister would have heard his view. I would convey that point back to the Prime Minister's office that has been raised.
Alistair Carmichael.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, the Minister may wish to reflect on the fact that the purpose of the sub judice rule is the protection of proceedings in court. It is not for ministers to hide behind. The Minister is clearly today not going to tell us, he's not going to answer the questions about ministerial sign-off. But can he, fulfilling his duties to this House, tell us whether or not that information is held within government?
What I would say to the Right Honourable Gentleman is this. He says what information is held, what information was said, and with regards to that specific information. What I say to him, look, there is a case going on at the High Court. Parliament, subject to what Madam Deputy Speaker or Mr. Speaker says, after that case has been held at the High Court, after the determination has been made, he is within his rights to have that urgent question on the floor of the House. But at this point in time, to speculate what information may be held, what may not be held, I think is not the right thing to do. What is a top priority for me and this government is to do everything we can to support Mr. Johal and his welfare.
Valerie Faz.
Can I just urge the Minister that there is a separation of powers and it's our job to hold the Minister to account. We ask you questions and it's for judges to decide on the case, which, if it's civil proceedings, they're in open court, so everybody can go along and hear it. But just a very simple question, Mr. Jagtar Singh Johal is a British citizen, and I would ask whether he's received consular assistance, and if so, when?
Hear.
Can I say, with regards to the second point, consular assistance, the point raised by the Honourable Member for West Derbyshire was with regards to the proceedings that were to take place in court today, and they did not take place today because the Indian authorities did not put forward the papers for the prosecution today. The British officials were there, at that hearing today. So we have been very supportive of Mr. Johal with regards to councillor support, as well as supporting with the Minister's meeting with his family here in the United Kingdom.
Alison Toulis.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I have three Sikh Gurdwara in my constituency: the Central Gurdwara Singh Sabha, the Guru Granth Sahib and Pollock Shields, and the Shri Guru Teg Bahadur Gurdwara, also in Pollock Shields. And the Sikh community in Glasgow are deeply concerned for Jagtar Singh Johal, and they send their solidarity to him and his family. But they are also deeply worried about any trip that they may be making to India. So can I ask the Minister what possible reassurance can he offer them?
What I would say to the Honourable Member is I too have Sikh community in my constituency at the Byron Road Gurdwara and the Franklin Road Gurdwara. Absolutely, I think the point I would say on that is the United Kingdom's top priority is the welfare of its citizens abroad, and on that basis we will do everything we can to support our citizens abroad.
Seema Malhotra.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I've been contacted by many of my constituents from all backgrounds concerned about the welfare and continued detention of Jagtar Singh Johal. The UN has confirmed that this is an arbitrary detention, with a working group there calling for his immediate release. If it is Foreign Office policy to call for the release of arbitrarily detained British nationals, has the government done so in this case? And if not, why not?
I think what I would say with regards to arbitrary detention and the point specifically about release is the answer I gave earlier, and I say again, the focus of these cases is always working with the best interest of the individuals concerned. There is no blanket approach for these cases, and they are tailored for specific individuals. I'm sure that the new Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary will want to review this case as a priority, which comes on to the point about determination of arbitrary detention in that regard.
Stephen Timms.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The policy on intelligence sharing with overseas intelligence agencies is covered by a document called the Principles. There's a loophole in that at the moment which does allow ministers to authorise tip-offs leading to torture contrary to UK and international law. Will the Minister ensure that that loophole is removed so it's absolutely clear that ministers must not authorise tip-offs leading to torture?
What I would say to the Honourable Gentleman is this, is with regards to that specific point, if he were to write to me in detail, I can ask officials to look at that and come back to him on that specific technicality.
Okay,
Deputy Speaker, since his arbitrary detention by Indian authorities, Jagtar Singh Johal has been represented, and I use that word loosely, by 3 Prime Ministers and 5 Foreign Secretaries. None of them have managed to secure Jagtar's release. Jagtar has been tortured into signing a false confession, denied proper access to a lawyer, and now potentially faces the death penalty. So will the Minister responding and the newly appointed Foreign Secretary make Jagtar's release an immediate priority? And will the Minister today commit to further ministerial statements on this matter? Because it does feel like today he's hiding behind a smokescreen.
Hear, hear.
What I would say to the honourable member is that this case is a priority for the United Kingdom Government, and it will be a priority for the Foreign Secretary, and it will be a priority for the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister, being the former Foreign Secretary, having directly raised that with her counterpart when she was the Foreign Secretary in India. So, yes, it is a priority for the United Kingdom Government.
Sarah Champion.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Minister, I need to push you on a very specific point. The outgoing Prime Minister accepted that Jagtar Singh Johal is arbitrarily detained. You say that you do not give the Minister says that the Foreign Office doesn't give an arbitrary blanket approach, but that's not correct. It has always been the Foreign Office policy to call for the release of arbitrarily detained British nationals. Yet the government has not done that in this case. So can the Minister explain why the government has not acted in line with its own policy, and will the Minister now commit to seek Jagtar's urgent release and return to the UK? Sorry, Madam Deputy.
Thank you. The honourable member is right. The former Prime Minister did make a determination on arbitrary detention. That is correct. And that the United Kingdom working group, the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention has issued its opinion about Mr. Johal. And that is the point with regards to the new Foreign Secretary and the new Prime Minister will have to make a determination for themselves on this matter, because she's asked me about the former Prime Minister, and therefore that was his opinion on that matter. So the new Prime Minister and the Foreign Secretary will need to come to their own opinion on this matter.
Khalid Mahmood.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome the Minister to his position. But the real crux of this matter is whether the issues in civil courts or not, that is the prerogative of the government. The government can pull that and deal with the real issue, deal with the real concerns of the family of somebody who's been tortured in Indian prison since 2017. And what we want him to do is what, as a British citizen, he would expect is for them to deal with it and bring him back home to his family. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
What I would say to the honourable gentleman is absolutely right that we should do everything we can to support Mr. Johal and his family, and that's why there's been nearly 100 forms of communication between officials and the ministers and the Indian counterparts with regards to Mr. Johal's case. It is a top priority for us, and we'll do all we can to support him and his family.
Chris Stevens.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I want to congratulate my honourable friend for Western Barton for securing the urgent question. Many people will think that the fact that negotiations in a free trade deal with India are going on at the same time as the UK national faces the death penalty is simply grotesque. So can the Minister confirm that negotiations on any free trade deal with India will cease until Mr. Johal returns home?
What I would say to the honourable gentleman is this: we will not pursue a trade to the exclusion of human rights. We regard both as an important part of a deep, mature and wide-ranging relationship with our international trading partners, and specifically with regards to the death penalty. The United Kingdom is very, very clear that we are opposed to the death penalty.
Abrahams.
I think this is a real test for this new government. Do they agree with universal human rights and a rules-based system or not? And if they do, they must demand that Mr. Johal is immediately released and returned to this country.
With regards to the first point, the government's commitment to an international rules-based system, the answer is yes. The United Kingdom government's commitment to open societies, yes. The United Kingdom government's to human rights, yes. On this specific point, I have previously given the answer on arbitrary detention and the issue of release.
John Speller.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the prolonged arbitrary detention without trial of Jagtar Singh Johal would be a disgrace even if he wasn't being tortured and abused, and especially as it seems that he's a British citizen. So will the new Foreign Secretary and Prime Minister make absolutely clear to the Indian authorities that if they think they have substantial evidence against Mr Johal, as was alleged by the member for Harrow East, then they should bring him straight away to open court for a fair trial. And if, as is much more likely, they don't, then he should be freed from prison at once and allowed to return to his family in the United Kingdom.
What I say to the Right Honourable Gentleman is that this case is a top priority for the United Kingdom Government and for the Foreign Secretary and the Prime Minister, and I want to make sure that everything is done to ensure that Mr Johal his case is dealt with quickly, swiftly, as the matter can be.
Deputy Speaker, and I'm grateful to my honourable friend for his persistence in this case, which is doubly important because it sounds to me as if the Minister is somewhat rowing back and somewhat hiding behind proceedings today. And I have to tell him that that is wholly unacceptable. My constituents who often travel to India, and constituents I'm sure across Scotland and across the UK, will be looking at this with deep concern. So I ask the Minister, what is he going to do to move this forward? What will he do to ensure that we do accept that this is a case of arbitrary detention? And how can he reassure those who come and go from India that the UK government won't simply abandon them at a whim, as they have Jagtar?
What I would say to the Honourable Lady, she says that the Minister may be hiding behind procedure. I would say to the Honourable Lady that she knows me as a parliamentarian for 12 years. I've stepped aside from government before on matters of principle. On this specific case, the government is doing all it can to support Mr Johal, which is a top priority for his family and for the United Kingdom Government. It was previously the matter was looked at by the Foreign Secretary to Foreign Secretary, Prime Minister to Prime Minister. I know Lord Ahmed, who covers this part of the world, has been consistently looking at this case with his counterparts in India. The matter is a top priority for the government.
Ongasari.
Deputy Speaker, like many of my constituents, I am deeply concerned to hear that Jagtar's legal team have provided evidence to Jagtar's detention and torture that took place following a tip-off by MI5. I have to say, I'm absolutely appalled by the Minister's comments in the Chamber today. It shows there's a lack of compassion, there's a lack of action on this issue. The Minister says that he is unable to comment due to legal proceedings, but I believe that it is in the government's gift right now to explain to the House what measures the government is taking to remedy this, what review they've taken place following what's happened, because this is deeply concerning. We cannot allow this to happen to many other people, and I really urge the Minister to just clarify to us whether a review is taking place and what steps the government has taken instead of ducking and diving.
Really must make sure that the questions are very brief so I can try to get everybody in. Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. With regards to the specific point, she says Minister's lack of compassion. What I say to the Honourable Lady is this. You know, when I was a former British envoy for religious freedom, I was working tirelessly with partners around the world to help release individuals being persecuted for their faith. On this specific case, the point she says to me, what specifically now? I've answered the specific point. The matter is in the High Courts, which are dealing with the accusations and allegations on what information was shared with who. That matter is matter for the High Court. Let the High Court deal with the matter. Once it has, she is within her rights to bring this matter back on a question to the House.
Steve McCabe.
The Minister referred to the two meetings where the former Foreign Secretary raised the case and a meeting where the former Prime Minister raised it with Mr Modi. Presumably that's evidence of the good efforts of the government. There must be notes of those meetings when we put them in the House of Commons library.
I think with regards to any specific notes, they'll be dealt with in accordance with procedure.
Patrick Brady. Is that a yes?
Sorry, thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. A great many worshippers at the Guru Nanak Sikh Temple on Otago Street in Glasgow North have signed a petition calling for Jaggi's release. Can the Minister confirm that if Jagtar was in the UK and the Indian government wanted to extradite him, that wouldn't be possible because of the threat of the death sentence? So why should he be threatened with capital punishment after being arbitrarily detained on the streets of India?
With regards to I didn't quite hear the question, so what I would say is the question that he's raised, I'll make sure I take it away and get him a full answer on that specific point.
Mohammed Yassin.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Jagtar Singh Johal's legal team has presented extensive evidence suggesting the British national's detention and torture followed a tip-off by MI5 and MI6. So will the UK government now acknowledge and apologise for any role in Jagtar's detention and take responsibility for securing his release and redress for abuses he has suffered?
I think what I would say to the honourable member is this, the point I made before, with regards to the United Kingdom government's position, we will do all we can to support Mr Johal, his family, and what I would say is that the point I didn't make earlier is that the former Foreign Secretary, now the Prime Minister, met with the Right Honourable Member for Dunbartonshire and Mr Johal's brother Gurpreet Singh on the 9th of June as the lead minister on this case. Lord Ahmed has met Gurpreet Singh Johal on at least 7 occasions, and that answers his specific point with regards to what the United Kingdom government is doing and our commitment to do all we can to support Mr Johal at this specific point in time.
Alan Dorrans.
Madam Deputy Speaker, good afternoon. Madam Deputy Speaker, the Sikh community in Scotland and elsewhere contribute significantly to the economic, civic and cultural life of this country. Does the government understand and appreciate the damage caused to the trust and confidence of that community in the government by failing to achieve justice for Jagtar? And what action will the government take to rectify the situation to reassure Sikhs, not only in this country but throughout the world?
What I would say to the honourable gentleman is this. I agree with him. The United Kingdom government pays a huge tribute to the contribution of the Sikh community across the board. They stood with us in the Second World War and the First World War, the contribution that they had to our freedom and liberty. They were part of us all the way through, and their contribution to our great country is absolutely needs to be recognised and is recognised by every member of Parliament in this House. And what I say to him, and I say to members across the House, that this is a specific case. The United Kingdom government will do all we can to support Mr Johal, but we are all united in recognising the contribution of the Sikh community.
Matt Weston.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I congratulate the member for West Arctic, Dunbartonshire. If I can align my position to that of the Right Honourable Member for Worley. My constituents are really concerned about this, the situation with Jagtar Singh Johal and the government's failure to support a British national. But they're also concerned and frustrated about the lack of transparency and action in certain other cases, including Morad Tabaz, who's in an Iranian prison, despite the FCDO requesting him to be released, and that of Ala Abd al-Fattah, who's in an Egyptian prison. Could he place in the library a report to update this House on their cases?
I think with regards to the specific cases that he's mentioned, I'll ask officials to publish what is available to be published in the House on those specific cases.
Tommy.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I really do hope that the Minister is taking Jagtar's case very seriously, because sadly this incident is not an isolated incident. We have faced similar difficulties defending my constituents in Coventry North West, the West Midlands 3. So can the Minister reassure both me and my constituents that Jagtar's freedom is never going to be up for negotiation in efforts to strengthen wider relations with the Indian government?
What I would say to the honourable lady with regard to a specific case in her constituency, if she wants to write to me, I'll make sure the ministers look at those specific points that she has and comes back to her.
Jim Shannon.
So can I first of all say to the Minister, I know he's committed to addressing issues of human rights across the world. I've worked with him. I understand that. I want to put that on record. But does the Minister not agree that the view of the UN Working Group, our own FCDO and legal judgments have made clear that the treatment of my friend's constituent is internationally unjustifiable, and that action must immediately be taken to bring home Jagtar Singh Johal back to the UK and send a clear message that the United Kingdom's innocent citizens, British passport holders, must be a government priority in India and indeed anywhere else in the world?
Thank you. I pay tribute to my honourable friend for all the fantastic way he does on freedom of religion or belief in supporting individuals who are persecuted for their faith around the world. He makes the point about the UK UN Working Group on arbitrary detention. That UN Working Group has also given India up to the 2nd of November to respond to what they have said in their findings. And I think that is made very clear to the Indian government with regards to the response, the date that's been said for them to do. The United Kingdom government is very clear, and I'm very clear, our government is committed to doing all we can to support Mr Johal and his family.
I thank the Minister for answering the urgent question. Point of order, Martin Doherty-Hughes.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Earlier in this urgent question, members you had made it quite clear about not exactly the regulation of the House in terms of sub judice and of privilege, but an advice to members. And that clearly was broken and taken advantage of. Quite frankly, I don't know about this side of the House. This side of the House quite clearly saw it as an abuse of privilege. And quite frankly, I don't like it when members become spokespersons for another foreign state. So I wonder, Madam Deputy Speaker, given that a member of this House has impugned the integrity of my constituent on the floor of the House of Commons of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, what is open to me as a constituency MP and those who are defending the rights of their constituents in the courts to make sure that such matters don't happen again?
Well, I thank the honourable gentleman for that point of order. I deliberately returned to the advice that I had given previously, which was about exercising caution in their remarks. As I say, I cannot force people to follow that advice. It is merely advice. The honourable gentleman has put on record his strong view about what has been said. If there are other ways that he wishes to pursue that, I'm sure the clerks would be able to advise him. But I really cannot add anything further to what I have said previously.
I'm grateful, Madam Deputy Speaker. I think the honourable member for Western Bartonshire refers to the honourable member from Harrow West and what he said. It's clear, sorry, Heath, I beg your pardon. It's clear that he will be relying on privilege given to him as a member of this House, in order to make the allegations that he has done. It's equally clear that these allegations are contested. So what mechanism is open to members where information released under privilege is contested in this way? Does he not have to repeat it outside?
It really is. I cannot prevent members from expressing their view. I am concerned that the honourable member who is being referred to is not here, and I would, and as the right honourable gentleman knows, it is customary to inform an honourable member previously if they wish to raise something. It is open to the right honourable gentleman to raise this on another occasion, but I would suggest that he informs the honourable member that he is going to do so, which would provide an opportunity for a response. Thank you. I think we will leave it at that. I take the honourable gentleman.